This is the Sex Ed for You podcast, where research meets reality.
And we're your hosts, Lauren and Holland.
This is the podcast for people who want to date and have great sex that is safe, fun, and enjoyable.
We aim to empower our listeners to make informed decisions that lead to values-based living. I'm Holland, and I have a Bachelor of Science in Public Health, and I'm the Director of Operations here at Sex Ed for You.
And I'm Lauren, a Certified Holistic Sexuality Educator and the proud owner of Sex Ed for You.
Lauren works with individuals, partners, and parents to restore positive and respectful approaches to sexuality, pleasure, and relationships.
To work one-on-one with me, go to sexedforyou.com/free consult to request a free 15-minute consult today, or consider joining our monthly membership program, Hemlock.
Through monthly journaling prompts, an exclusive podcast, and virtual gatherings, the Hemlock Monthly Membership Program provides an accessible way to learn about sexuality and self.
It is a continual source of nutrients to help you nurture and re-access your sexuality and flourish personally for just $10 a month. To learn more, go to sexedforyou.com/hemlock today.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Everybody, before we get started, for all of our New York audience, we have an announcement. We are coming back to the city, like the first week of May. But the very first big thing that we're doing is a collaboration with my dear friend, Annalisa Lemming, who is a Broadway actor turned coach, and she's phenomenal. We have collaborated on a workshop in March of 23 virtually, and it was the best. If you love the holistic way in which Sex Ed for You works with our clients, you're going to love Annalisa as well. So in line with how we do things. It's literally wild. But we're going to do an Unlocking Desire workshop. We're going to talk about using sexual energy to really help you chase your dreams and embrace your dreams and lean into them and lean into the shadow and lean into the great things that happen when you put it out to the universe. This is what I want to do. And then also the shitty things. And I think that's one of my favorite things about Annalisa is not only is she holistic and embodied, she also doesn't mind sharing the really hard shit too. It's not easy. I mean, Holland and I have spent all morning on back end joy for this business. And I think because we can put off such a pretty package, people will also often think, oh, like, wow, that must be easy. It must be full of ease. No, there's some days that are full of like groans and frustrations. Annalisa and I were laughing about, reels that you work so hard on that get like no visibility at all. Anyway, we would love for you to join us for a 4-hour workshop. We're going to work on story. We're going to work on shadow. We're going to work embodied exercises, journal prompts, discussion questions, all the Sex Ed for You good stuff and all the Annalisa Lemming good stuff. You can go to sexedforyou.com/unlocking desire and register now. There's an early bird discount that's going to go until April 10th. And then if you don't get in before early bird, it's going to jump up to $175. We'd love to have you there. And that's going to kick off our New York tour.
It is. It's going to be a dramatic New York tour. Mm-hmm. We're doing so many events.
We'll let you know about the other things, but that is the one that you need to sign up for literally like now.
Yeah.
You should do that.
It's going to go fast.
It is. We're max probably 30 people.
Yeah.
And because we really want it to be intimate. We don't want it to be big.
Yeah.
And the other stuff might just be like, I don't know, kind of not secret, but like invite only. So this is the one that we're opening up to the public. Yeah. And so, yeah. You should do that. Go register.
So I have a lot to tell you.
Holland, okay, y'all. Holland has been teasing this out, like the fact that she has things to tell me, but that she can't tell me until the podcast for days.
3 days. Not that many. It's like
Monday is when you started telling me these things. Because sometimes, not often, but sometimes Holland and I go a whole weekend without seeing each other. And that's what happened this past weekend.
Just so much happened.
Okay, so what you want to do is give me a life update.
Yeah. And then we're going to go and talk about my religious background.
Upbringing. Yeah. Because I gave my whole word vomit story last time. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm ready. Wait, okay. What do you want from me? Do you want me just to listen? Do you want me to comment?
I don't know.
You want my faces, I know.
I want your faces. We'll figure it out as we go because I don't really know. It's been a few days, so I've had time to process everything.
I literally
on
like
my
my
own.
stomach.
But I haven't really talked to anybody about it like at all because my best friend has been unavailable and there's not really many people I can talk that are unbiased in this situation.
Yeah. And please know, this is why we call this a research meets reality.
Yeah.
Because Holland and I definitely take this approach to life that like, yeah, this is real.
This is very real.
Our choices in the minutes.
And as I was telling you earlier today, I was like, I mean, let's exploit my personal life. But at the same time, it's funny to walk the line between like privacy and secrecy, like we said, because there are like a lot of things that I need to keep private about my life. And it's so hard for me because, guys, I forget that this is going on the internet. Like as we're sitting here talking,
right,
I fully forget. And then even as I'm the one like editing and putting it together and doing the marketing for it, even then doesn't hit me. Then I'll get a text from a friend or something who's like, hey, I listened to the podcast, this episode. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, oh, I forget that people really actually listen to us talk because that really blows my mind. But
thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. Yeah. And also, y'all are helping me learn the line between privacy and what should be on the internet.
Can we talk really fast about privacy and secrecy? Because this was a fascinating thing, and I think this is a great launching point. Growing up, a lot of people raised in strict homes were not given the human right of privacy. They were almost taught that when it came from adult to child behavior, adults were allowed non-consensual acts, right? Yeah. Go in your room, take this. My parents read my journals. My parents read my emails, all this types of stuff. And so a lot of times I was told that like secrets were sinful. Like you can't do that because you're hiding it. I wasn't coached up with the difference between privacy and secrecy. So when we teach young people about sexuality, it's really important that we teach them what is private, right? And sure, we could get into voyeurism and exhibitionism as kink and fun modalities, and those should always be done in consensual places, like in consensual ways. You and I the other day were talking about how do we feel about close friend stories and stuff like that, where like somebody just like shows their body.
Oh my God, yeah, we haven't talked about that.
Yeah. Okay. Right, but this works because wait, that's a private thing, and I am on your close friend stories.
For context,
so like.
Yeah, I am on somebody's private story and they posted like a full nude photo.
Full nude.
With an emoji covering the important bit, but like barely. And I was like very affronted and confused by what the hell I was supposed to like do with that. I don't know. It was just it was a lot in one moment.
Right. Just fun discussions. And luckily on like a platform like that, one could mute or unfollow. Yeah. Which is great.
Or
right.
remove
That's
yourself,
like a clear, like, close friend. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And privacy and secrecy. Growing up, we always would talk about these accountability partners and who you're being accountable to and this whole type of thing, which made me at many times feel guilty for not talking about fill in the blank.
Yeah.
No, there are things that all of us deserve to keep private, don't need to be talked about with every person, and don't need to be put on the internet. And it doesn't mean that Helen's keeping a secret.
No, but I do have my own private life. And I had voiced to Lauren today that like one of my worries with this podcast and with this platform that we have is I don't want people to be hesitant to being in my life because they feel as if they don't have privacy, because that is not the goal of this podcast. It is not the goal of what we do at all. So just learning the line. Welcome to the journey.
Right. And I think it's hard in this culture because reality television is such a big thing and people are so used to people talking about their lives.
And I'm just so open generally. Like you could ask me any question in person and I will tell you the God's honest truth. Like it is just who I am. So when we're in a room alone, granted with cameras on us, I don't really notice them. Like I don't really think about it. So it's hard for me to draw that line, but I'm getting a lot better at it. So
good.
Diving into this story, we're going to skim the story.
Okay.
So, oh God. So there has been this party that I knew I was going to have to go to. It's like a whole friend group. It was putting it together. It was a birthday. And I was really excited about it, but my ex also is in this friend group. And so I knew going into it super anxious. Like, just, I haven't seen him in a long time, and I don't know, there's just still like tension there, and not bad tension, but like sexual
erotic tension.
Like so much erotic
There's
tension.
erotic friction because of all the stuff.
All of the things. So I was like, okay, well, I have to look hot, obviously. But that was bottom line. And so I'm getting ready for the party and texting my best friend back home and being like, this is like what I'm doing tonight. I don't really know how it's going to go. Just like, I don't know, just nervous talking to her about these things. Like, I'm even like sweating a little talking about it. Like,
I'm sweating.
It's stressful. And it literally felt like, to me, like what, like a young adult novel scene. That's what it felt like. And so then as I go to this party, it's like glitter themed. So I'm just wearing like sparkles, and I have this perfect outfit on. It's like literally a girl at the party came up to me and told me it was the perfect quote unquote revenge outfit. I was like, definitely wasn't a revenge outfit, but I just wanted to look hot. Yeah. So I wore that like black tank top and like jeans that make my ass look really good. And that was the fit. But I had sparkles all over me and all the other. Anyway, so I get to the party, and driving there, I'm literally like hyping myself up, listening to the most intense music I possibly can, just like screaming in the car. And the 20-minute drive feels like so much shorter than it typically is. And I get there and I like turn off my car and I just sat in my car for like 15 minutes just pondering, like, do I have to go inside? Because it's the entrance to me. And I realized this as I looked back on it, because I obviously journaled about it. And I was like, I have so little control in these situations, and I am such a control freak. And the biggest event of the whole thing is the entrance. Like, how do I get into this party and like say hellos without it being so awkward? So I'm like, okay, planning my entrance. What am I gonna, this is so silly, but like, how am I gonna carry the things? Like the gift and the alcohol and like, you know, my bag. Like, how am I gonna carry all this and still look hot? Because what if he's like right behind the door when I open the door? Like, I have
schlepping.
I have to be ready. And so I finally get in after screaming in the car for 15 minutes. And entrance goes fine. Nothing happened. He wasn't in the room that I entered into, and so like all was well. The night really goes well, and I like had already not planned, but like I had a topic of conversation that we could talk about, because I was like, look, if we're gonna be in the same friend group, like we have to be able to talk. And so all my friends also know that we're both nervous, like both of us, and they have told both of us respectively, like, it's gonna be fine, like y'all just need to talk. Anyway, so I had my topic. It's betting. I was like, I'm going to bet on a sports game because I have, long story short, I have some credit with a bettor. And I was like, I need to place a wage. Yeah. And I don't know how. So he is really good at that. And I was like, okay, cool. So we can talk about that. And yeah, so at some point in the party, I go up to him and ask him to like help me with that. He does. And like, while we're talking, God, how much of this can I put on the internet? No, nothing crazy happened.
I'm like holding my breath.
Just like the most intimate thoughts of my brain. Let's just say.
Okay, what would, in like an Emily Henry novel, like you were like a young, right? What would she have written?
She would have written that, gosh, not even that. I wrote, because when I wrote my journal article about this, I wrote it in the style of a YA novel.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds right.
And it was, because I remember standing in the middle of the like room where everybody's dancing and hanging out. This is before we talked. Everybody's dancing and hanging out. And the birthday girl asked me like, oh, I need a new song like to put on. And I was like, oh, I have the perfect song. Well, it was like a song that just came out, and it's a song that I really like. And I had put it on my story. I knew he had seen it on my story. Not that that really matters, but anyway. So the song comes on, and if you're a type 4 or someone who loves music as much as I do, you know the instant regret that you feel the second a song comes on in like a group setting that you like volunteered, and it's like, oh my God, is everybody gonna like it? Is everybody gonna hate it? I don't know. And so like everybody liked it, but then like he comes in and they're like all acting goofy as shit to the thing, and I was like, in that moment, I was like, is this what high school was like for other people? Like house parties with random music and a disco ball? Like, is this what high school was? Because it wasn't for me. But it was funny. So I felt like I was, experiencing a young adult experience. So that was fun. Anyway, so we have a conversation. And what I wrote about the conversation in hindsight was that, like, I can tell every single time we like lock eyes or start talking, like the room clears. Literally everyone leaves, and it's not intentional. So anyway, we're talking about betting of all things. Everybody cleared the room. And I was just like, I just couldn't focus. Like he was trying to explain these things to me, and I'm like looking at his hands, like not paying attention to what he's explaining. And then like we make eye contact, and I'm like, and I've forgotten everything that you said in the past 10 minutes because now I'm looking at your eyes, and you got a haircut. When did you get a haircut? What? How long have you had your what? And like nothing is working in this brain, y'all. Like everything stops. And yeah, so that was that. And, you know, the night went on. It genuinely was a completely and totally normal night. And then what really, I think, toppled me, not only was I drinking, obviously, because nervous, but I had 3 separate girls, all of my friends who know the situation, know the intricacies of it, know why we're not together, which are very good reasons. And one of them comes up to me. There are 2 that I expected this from. One of them comes up to me and she's like, look, I know y'all aren't gonna work out and that right now is not the right time, but like when y'all are together, it's hard not to look. Like y'all are just, there's just something about the way you are in each other's orbit. And I was like, I know, like I feel it. And so there was that. And then another one of my friends comes up probably 30 minutes later, and she's like, look, I can't lie and say I haven't secretly been hoping that y'all would get back together. Like, and seeing y'all together tonight, having that conversation was like overwhelming. And I was like, okay. And friend number 2. And like both of those I expected because like they know me, they know, but I didn't expect them to say it that night because we've all been on the same wavelength of like, it's not going to work out. There's no reason to pine over something that's not going to work out. And so I didn't expect either of them to say it that night. And then someone I don't even know comes up to me and says something similar, like along the same lines. And I'm like, okay, could y'all stop? Like, I know, okay? I'm already in this tension bubble. Like, I already feel it. And then I have everyone coming up to me and being like, y'all look really good together. Like, I'm like, oh my God. Could we scramble my brain anymore? Like, so then me being me, this part might get cut. I don't know if I can, but I had really wanted to just make out with him. I just wanted to make out, nothing else. All I wanted. Stop looking at me like that.
Well, you made me wait.
I know. Okay, so everybody moves into the basement, which is like perfect. We all move into the basement. We're playing games down there. Everybody at this point is pretty much obliterated. I'm going down because I was like, I want to drive home tonight. So I drank at the front half and was like letting my sobriety hit at the end because I'm an avid advocate for not driving drunk. So I had stopped drinking at this point and was just like sipping on something. And yeah, we go downstairs and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make like a big deal out of going back upstairs. So I like scrape my chair against the floor, stand up.
Classic.
Pull up my jeans, make sure my ass looks nice, and like head up the stairs. Stand up there, twiddle my thumbs, and I go to the bathroom, and like nothing happens. I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. So I go back downstairs. And yeah, I think I did that one more time, and like both times, not a clue was had. He did not follow. And I was like, I'm not about to drag this man. It needs to be voluntary.
Yeah, 100%.
It felt like it was there, but he didn't follow. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, that doesn't need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the night comes to a close, we're like all kind of sitting near each other. There's like a group of us that are like really close within the group. And so all 4 of us were sitting together. And so I turned to the people next to me, and they were like, yeah, well, we asked him like how he felt about you being here tonight. And his response was, well, I broke up with her. I'm fine. And my heart dropped so low. Like, I was like, oh, okay. Like, that just, it like literally felt like a sword went through my chest.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to underhand me like that. That's not what they were asking. That's not, and like, even knowing, like, I know that's a defense mechanism. I know that he's just saying that, but like, it hurt.
God, it like feels like a balloon that just like got like popped.
Like, with all of the buildup of the night and like these people telling me all these things, and like, I'm not under any delusions of we're getting back together or that everything's gonna be great. I'm under 0 delusions. I am simply just like riding this, I don't know, emotional high, and desire and eroticism. Like, that's what I'm on. And then I get told like, well, he dumped you. Like, and I'm like, okay, ow. Like, really, ow. And also there's so much more to it. It's like, because then my brain goes into like, that's not, course, there's so much more than just that. It wasn't just a dumping. Ugh. Anyway, it felt really sucky. And I was really sad that he said something like that. And
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So then I got in my car. I was like, bye, guys. I'm
Yeah,
also
on that
going to leave.
note.
Not to like leave immediately after he left, because I was like, it's not that I came here just to see him, but I am hurt. And like, I need to go home and I need to fucking cry.
Yeah.
So I left, got in the car, was screaming, just like anger from, because at first I was sad, but then I was just pissed off.
Yeah.
It's like, how dare you say that? And like, to someone he knows, like, this is my best friend in this town. Like, this is my best friend. And to say that to her, I was like, what the hell? I'm
such like a fan of people just speaking well of somebody, like when you're not in their presence.
And like, to be very fair, like, I also have said my fair share of quippy things about him. So like, I almost felt like I still feel like, I mean, I don't really have the right to say anything and like be that upset about it, because I've said similar quippy things in the confidence of just like my girlfriends. But it's still quippy. I'm not above reproach. Like, I've said things. It just, it hurt. And like, if he'd ever heard anything I'd said about him that was quippy, he'd also be hurt. It was not a matter of ill intent. It was a matter of like, ouch. Like, it just kind of like, it just was, the balloon popping. Like, there was all of this like tension and eroticism. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, reality. Like,
I just read this quote this other day. This is where that reality meets research. It's like the flip-flop of the ideal fantasy partner is the one who can maintain the fantasy projection. Right. And so all night you were able to stay in this fantasy projection, which is what is so erotic about the thing. Right. You're not having to do day in, day out relationship with him. You can just enjoy how fucking hot he is and look hot yourself and think about the hot makeout and maintain the fantasy projection. And then in that moment, the fantasy projection was like a bubble and it burst, balloon pop. And that sucks.
And I felt foolish for even
of
thinking
course,
of it.
right?
Like,
But
oh my God. Like,
but like, that's why this work that we do is so fucking cool, because it's like, no, it is erotic. It is.
And the fantasy was fun.
And the fantasy's
so much fun. It made the party
it's really fun.
a lot more fun for me. Like, I was having a great time. I truly did. It just, the second that reality set in, I was like, So anyway, I drove home, kind of. I drove and texted my friend.
I knew this was where this was going. If I was a betting woman,
I texted my friend.
I would have made another bet.
And
which was eroticism's really good for lots of things.
Hey, you up? like midnight. I was like, hello. And thankfully he lives very close to me. So I was on the way home, and I literally, as I was like about to pass his apartment, was like, hey, you up? And he was like, yeah, come over. And so I just like, instead of going 10 more feet, I just turned right, like right into his apartment complex.
Good for you.
But I do want to also like,
was it consensual for the other person?
It was.
You know what I'm saying? Like, listen.
I don't know. It felt, I don't think I'm going to do it again.
See, I will say till the cows come home. There are things we need to learn through doing them, and through doing them. And you done that.
I done it.
And again, in so much as it was consensual for all the parties.
Yeah.
You know, like you guys have had some really beautiful talks. You really have.
Yeah.
Just to brag on you for a second of some define the relationships. What is this right now? What are our goals? What are this? And I'm sure he knew what party you'd been to, or no?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I pretty much came into the apartment and was like, this sucks. I'm angry. And he was like, come here. And we just like cuddled.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was consensual.
Why in your body, if you don't mind saying, because I do think this is
Yeah.
fascinating for the audience, because they also might need to done the thing. It's so beautiful to learn. But what was it in your body that you were like, ugh, I don't want to do that, or maybe I won't do that again?
It felt like I was using him.
Okay. Yeah.
And I wasn't. That wasn't my intention. And I do love this human specifically, outside of any interaction with my ex. It just felt icky. And I don't plan on doing that again. But
I love what I hear Helen saying, y'all, is that it doesn't really align with her ethically inside herself.
yeah.
And we get to all decide those types of things. Did it offend the other party? No. Did they probably enjoy it? Yeah. Okay. And we can inside ourselves be like, yeah, I've done that so many times, right? I mean, we've all heard the story of what color, right?
What
color? Like, that's kind of the feeling I had coming home.
Yeah.
Like,
And it didn't satisfy what I had wanted. And like the sex was good, but it wasn't that I wanted. It was the intimacy.
It's like there was still a longing at the end. And you and I talk about this all the time. Like, what is the human need that's really pulling there? And that's up to us to get to decide. And in so much as it is not harmful or violent or coercive and all of these things, sometimes the sex that we have is an extension of our bodies trying to reach out and get the needs met. And it's not always harming other people, but it's also maybe not meeting, like actually satisfying the appetite.
Yeah, it didn't meet the need.
Yeah.
Because the need was, and I've identified it since, was that like I just needed to be wanted. I wanted to be wanted.
Of course.
Like truly desired in like a carnal sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just wasn't fulfilled.
Yeah.
And it was sad. But yeah, so that was my weekend. Do you feel glad that you've heard it now?
I'm so happy to hear it all. And I'm so proud of you for living in this human experience, because I laughed when you were like, this must be what high school is.
It felt like it. I was like, I didn't have this experience, but this feels like a YA novel.
I also feel like it's like a young professional world. I do. And I think that's the stage of life that you're in. And I think that's the person that we want this podcast to be for, is the people who are dating and want to have good sex. And why don't you tell the people what made the interaction, the X interaction, like so erotic? Like, could you pull any of the things in?
I mean, yeah. So I think it was definitely knowing that it wouldn't work.
Ooh. Yeah.
Knowing that relationship is not going to be long term for like right now.
Yes.
I know, like, just knowing that I shouldn't. Because when I texted my best friend and told her, she was like, I will cut you. Like, that was the exact text that I got back.
So violating prohibitions.
Violating prohibitions.
Even from best friends. Oh my goodness, the amount of times my best friend and I have done the thing that they said not to do, and it's made it hotter. Because like, you're in trouble with your best friend.
Hey,
it's weird.
They know me best.
Listen. I'll get a Lauren text.
I did
vice versa with me. So yes, the forbidden. Yes, y'all, when we know it's not something we're actually gonna pursue long term, it makes it so much more fun because the stakes are lower, the risks are less. It's like, I don't want to be with you forever. You were fill in the blank, like not a good partner for me for whatever reason. It makes sexual tension higher because it's almost like, well, anything's fair game.
Yeah. And having not seen him for a long time was definitely part of the eroticism.
So there's anticipation and longing.
Girl, there's so much. I think every single cornerstone of eroticism was in there because it was, not seeing him for so long.
Okay.
Violating prohibitions, power dynamic.
Oh God, yeah.
The power let's see if we can describe the power dynamic. I guess it would be like
in your body, because this is what I think is so fun, because so many people are like,
I felt more powerful than I was in our relationship. That's the difference, is I feel like I have reached a point where I can look back and be like, I am not gonna let those things happen. Like this, I am an evolved woman. And
6 months later.
And
we grow so fast.
I've done so many things. Like I'm, killing it at work. I have done this, that, and the other. And like, I just feel very successful in my life right now. And then, okay, so that's power dynamic, longing and anticipation, overcoming ambivalence.
That one. Yeah.
What was the last?
No, you skipped overcoming ambivalence.
Overcoming ambivalence. Oh, that's our entire relationship was overcoming ambivalence, which is essentially just like, the fact that he didn't follow me up the stairs. Yes. The fact that like I approached him first to say things because he didn't approach me. Like that's overcoming ambivalence. Yeah. Like anyway, there's your 4 cornerstones of eroticism, all exemplified in Holland's Weekend.
Which makes things so hot.
So fucking hot.
And I think it's my favorite part of our job is that it is not our role to like condemn our erotic brains that are so stimulated by that. It's just our job to be like, ooh, okay. Yeah, I see you. And what makes for the most erotic scenarios, sadly, doesn't always make for the best partnership material.
Yeah.
Right? And so just so interesting that you went into the night like so excited, so powerful, and then left so defeated until you, pivoted. And just fascinating. And we need to live life. I think putting sex or eroticism on some pedestal or in a closet or disconnected from ourselves just does us a disservice. I really do. And I think this was integrating. It was.
No, it really was. It was really good for me. It was
I'm
hard,
sorry. Yeah.
But it was also good. I mean, I don't feel scarred. Like, I mean, the next day I was kind of like, ugh. But the day after I was like, and, moving on. Like, it's okay. It was good. I think it was good that it happened the way it did. I think it was good that he said something hurtful because it, lifted the balloon.
Yeah.
I think every single step of it happened the way it was meant to happen.
Yeah. And being able to look at it like that is really, cool, beautiful. Like, that's life. That is, we learn everything else that way. Yeah. Like everything, right? When I think about it, we have fucking first times of so many different things. And no one would ever say to someone like, oh, you should be you should know better about all these other, it's like, no, they're life skills.
Yeah.
And sexuality and especially eroticism, my God, we're just spend so much time telling people who they should and should not be with. And then people get with these like really great, like wise choices. I can't tell you how many people I'm working with right now who've made such a wise choice at some point.
Yeah.
And then there's no erotic attraction.
Yeah.
So that's also what was going through my brain as a sexuality educator. I was like, so some really good. Some would be Esther Perel's theory of the presence of the third. By allowing ourselves to interact with other erotic energies, we can bring that energy home to a long-term partner. If that's something that we want to play with, we get to. We get to feel desired by others if that's something we want to throw into the mix. Now, what it can be really not good for is that in dating relationships, and I know this is what this podcast is really focused on, when we're almost like causing the drama, causing the heightened desire in our bodies and other spaces, and then coming back to a safe person that we know is a really safe choice. And yeah, just be mindful if you're doing that as a dating person.
Yeah.
Because that's not fair to the person you're dating, that they end up being the boring person and you go out and get your drama erotic kicks somewhere else. Yeah, but it's a very common thing that happens because Madonna horror, we do it like the other way too. We're like, this is a safe, good man, or this is a safe, good woman, but it's not sexy.
It's not sexy
because we like put that over here.
Yeah,
with, like, the dangerous, the bad boy,
the one with the leather jacket.
Right? That's like a tale as old as time. So this is not like rocket science, but just fascinating.
Yeah, so that was my weekend.
Wow.
And now we get to talk about my religious background.
Oh, yay.
Holland's just spilling the beans today.
Woohoo.
I don't know where to begin this story, to be honest with you.
I can ask you questions.
Okay. I can just start.
You feel a good start? Okay,
yeah.
Go.
Okay. So, as we said last time.
As we said on the previous episode of Sex Ed for You.
As seen before. Lauren and I grew up in the same denomination of Christianity, which is called Reformed Presbyterianism. And
wild.
There's
not that many people out there.
No, I think there's 10 of us total. And we all hold hands. Grew up in that denomination, but in a different, in a less conservative faction of it. My church I actually still love my church, my home church to this day. I grew up, I don't even know where to. I think what I have learned about my religious background is I received a lot of messages, and my brain, being the OCD brain that it is, literally, it's obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't use that as an adjective. No. I use it as a diagnosis. Yeah. It is one that I have. And my brain kind of just grasped onto some things, and not all of them were necessarily enforced by people around me, but more so by my own hormonal imbalance and neurological difficulties. So a lot of the things that I remember and believe were most traumatic in my life were not necessarily enforced by outside parties, but things that I took in from the outside world and was like, oh, so this is how it's expected to be. And I really adhered to rules that weren't necessarily imposed upon me, but were suggested. And my brain said, oh, okay, I can do that. Which is also just kind of the tone of my entire upbringing of we were very avoidant of difficult topics, including things like religion. We went to church every Sunday. My dad is, not an officiant, a
deacon, an elder.
Elder, yeah, he's an elder in the church, and we were always involved and kind of like one of the core families. That sounds gross to say, but we were kind of one of the core families of the church, because all of the kids of these families are all the same age. So I had friends of the same age that were all within my church, and all of them are wonderful. I've lived with a few, been best friends with a few. They're all great people. I don't even know what is pertinent to the listeners to know about my religious background. I guess my story isn't as sequential.
Never will be.
Never will be. I guess it's important. Oh, I went to church camp every summer. It was the same church camp every summer. And then I ended up working at that church camp as a college student, which was really fun. But it's Presbyterians genuinely think we're the cool people out of the Christian, Christian denominations. We're oh, well, we're chill.
Well, because Presbyterians believe in this predestination thing. So Presbyterians believe not necessarily in evangelicalism, which is interesting. Some do, but some truly believe that salvation was preordained. And so either you are a part of the chosen, that's why they say the frozen chosen, or you're not. And so they can be kind of chill, not is it in your face. And they tend to be much more lax on dancing and drinking and these types of things too. Yeah. It's not as legalistic. They would actually say that they're not legalistic. They would 100%. Say that they follow these Calvin's tulip principles and all this kind of stuff. And it is interesting. It totally can be more lax.
The theology of it was always really interesting to me. I always loved learning about it because for me, I'm inherently very curious. And that was thankfully not really stifled down when I was a kid. And I asked a lot of questions. I remember very vividly this one kind of like scene in my memory of being at camp with my pastor's kid, and she and I were walking, and I was like, I just don't understand why our Bible is the right one when there are so many that have been around for the same amount of time. Like, why is our Bible the right one? And why is everybody else going to hell when, like, some of these people have never even heard of Jesus, or they have a God who's just as cool as Jesus, so why the hell would they change to ours? Like, I don't understand. And, like, I was just asking those kinds of questions from age 9 and up. Like, I was just always like, why this one, though? Like, why this one? Why this Bible? Why this God? Why this, tradition? And so once I got old enough for people to explain things to me, like the principles of tulip, like Calvinism, like predestination, and, free will, because that we get into that a lot in Presbyterianism, the overlap of free will and predestination. And so once people started explaining those to me, I felt like it was more justified. Like my faith was more justified because, okay, well, at least I have like facts for it.
I will say that I think one of the reasons that Holland and I are so nerdy about this work that we do now comes from our mutual appreciation of facts-based faith from such a young age. And that in those worlds, theology is huge, and thinking and discussion and all of those things. I was never discouraged from doing all of that. Yeah. And
I remember.
I do think it's like one of those things where the wound becomes the superpower.
Yeah.
I knew once I left that world that I was going to need to do as much research to back what I then became to believe, because that was the only way it's going to cut it for me.
I needed research to leave.
Yeah. Like, truly. Which is cool.
Because my deconstruction is very recent. And I remember I was in a relationship. Oh, this is definitely pertinent. Glad this came up. I was in a relationship that ended because he wasn't a Christian. And then we got back together, and the whole question was, are you going to be okay if I never become a Christian? And I remember just being so torn. And it was so difficult for me because I was like grasping. I was on the verge of deconstruction, which is why it was so difficult for me to be okay with him not being a Christian, because I knew that if I had someone in my life as that force, that I would break, that I would lose the one thing that I was still holding on to. And like, that is what, connects me to my family, to my past, to my hometown. Like, all of these things are drenched in the waters of Christianity. You can't have one without the other. And so I knew that this boyfriend who my family already didn't like, if he was the one to pull me from Christianity, like, it would be the beginning of the end. And so we had a lot of conversations about what that would look like. And he like actively met with my pastor and was like trying. And I remember being like, oh, I've done it. Like he's, he's gonna convert and all that. Anyway. Wow. But I remember being encouraged to, when in my desire to find facts and ask questions, I remember very specifically being told, like, you don't need to worry whether you're chosen or not, because that was a big stress for me. Like, why would I be chosen by God? Like, why does he care about me specifically? And I'm questioning things all the time. Why would he choose someone who's like so questioning? And I remember being told, like, you wouldn't have these questions if God didn't put them there. And on one hand, it was like somewhat comforting, because I'm like, okay, well, I guess since I'm questioning, it's God telling me I need to learn more. But then on the other side, I was like, no, I'm pretty sure these questions are mine.
They just come from me.
I'm pretty sure that I came up with these, that these were born from my own brain cells, So I was just, very conflicted. I just always had so many questions, and I felt like nobody could ever give me a straight answer. The dinosaurs, that one fucked me up as a kid. I remember I went to my pastor like 5 separate times to ask him about the dinosaurs. Like, where were they? Were they on the ark? Did we lose them in the ark? Where did they go? Why were they not here? If just dinosaurs in the Bible, they don't line up. And we have archaeological evidence for one of them, and it's not the Bible. So I was very confused, and just constantly asking questions. And I think a pivotal moment was when I realized that I liked girls. And I've talked about this on this podcast before, about I knew that I liked women in a way that most women in my life did not. And I knew that that wasn't like allowed for some reason. And I kept trying to find reason behind it, not necessarily in the Bible, because I didn't really care at that point. I had already invalidated the Bible in my own mind. I did that at a very young age. I was like, and this Bible seems fake. I was like, this has been translated how many times and written by who, and who decided which books go into this? Because there's a lot of them that are just like not included, and the Catholics have 12 more and the Mormons have their own, and there's like this whole thing, and yet technically it's supposed to be the same thing, and it was all just written by a bunch of dudes who were claiming they heard voices in like fire bushes. And like, I don't know if so anyway, all that to say, I kind of negated the Bible early on, so I didn't really start looking for things in there. Instead, I was just asking people, like, why is it not okay to be gay? Why is it not okay to do this, that, and the other? And yeah, that's essentially my story. Lots of questions, lots of frustrations. And what eventually kind of like pushed me over the edge was just like, I don't like the way these people act. I don't like the way these people enact their beliefs upon the world, and the fact that they think that because of their religion they are like superior. It's the superiority complex that really frustrated me, because I couldn't grasp the purpose of this indoctrinated love that didn't actually love the way that I thought love should look like. And I felt like I myself had been outcast for things that are not bad. Right. And so like, and I wasn't necessarily ever outcasted or cast out because I kept those things internal, but I knew that like the second it came out, it would be like you need to go to counseling, you need to do this, that, and the other. And I just didn't really agree with it. And yeah, all my questions ended up leading me to the road of like, I don't think I have the same foundational values as this organizational religion does. Like, I just don't think that this is for me. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I loved that you said this kind of like what I always call like embedded theology, right? It's just like all this sidecar stuff that came down with.
Yeah.
I always imagine like the Bible and then all the extra stuff is in like little sidecar. And, you know, it's so sad that, so much of that is what people are shaping what a Christian looks like upon, is not even biblical Christian text. It's all of this other stuff. And yeah, that was also what ultimately led to my departure, is I was like, I can't be a part of a group that hurts people like that.
Yes.
Like, I will not. I will not. So and I just remember thinking, and I don't think we talked about this last time, like my nonprofit that I had founded was specifically non-religious. And I would say, I want people who would never step foot in the front doors of a church to feel comfortable there. And now looking back, I'm like, Lauren, that said a lot. There was people who wouldn't feel safe inside a church.
Oh, 100%.
And then, well, whoa. Like, why? Why are you going to that place every week? Why do you get to just traipse in, right? What, because you're better. Why? And so now looking back, and, you know, we make the best choices that we can with the information we have. But that was ultimately what was my undoing of no, it's not my job to fix modern Reformed Presbyterianism.
No.
Y'all have fun with that. And
it always pissed me off too. This was another thing. There are some aspects that just made me angry. And one of them was that women can't be preachers, elders, or deacons, or really hold any position in the church except childcare or assistant work. And I'm like, okay, fuck that. Like, I'm sorry. And I remember, like, even people I'm really close to that are women reinforcing that and being like, well, it would just feel weird to have a woman preach to me. And I'm like, why? What about that feels weird to you? Because let me tell you something. Also, most of our teachers in public schools and in most schools are women. And then you get into the college institutions and it's more men. You know why? Misogyny. Because we think that men can only do womanly, quote unquote, womanly things when they're in higher levels of it. So we let them be professors. But when they're a teacher, it's like demeaning. Like it was just so fucked up. It really bothered me. It's like, why? Not that I ever would want to, but why can't I become a deacon or an elder or a pastor? Why can't I serve communion? Why can't I be a counselor?
I don't understand it. Because even, again, Christian scriptures don't. God, if we can't look at something and understand the time and place in which it was written, if we can't, I'm just blown away. The further I get from it, the further I'm like, what the actual fuck? That is misogyny. That is not okay. And yeah, every Bible story that I learned, it was always stories of boys.
Men. Yeah, always, every single time.
Yes. And then, the stories that were women, when I think of like Esther and Ruth and all of these types of things, Rahab, these all have to do with sex.
Tamar.
But that was never told to me. It was never like Esther was chosen because she was the best sexual partner.
But it's true.
That is what it is. They were all primed and readied and prepared for a year. And then her sexual power was never discussed to me. Never. Then same with Ruth. She went in and slept with Boaz. Made her body available to him. Never.
Bathsheba, who was literally just like stolen from her husband. Her husband was murdered because she was pretty and taking a bath. And David saw it. And like the glorification of David and the glorification of all the men that are just absolutely terrible human beings and they just get glorified. Like, oh, be like David. Bitch, if you are like David, I don't want you. Get out of my life.
And just that the Bible couldn't, we talk a lot in our world about like generative boundaries, things that move and expand and grow. And, thankfully, the Christian church is willing to say, things like enslaving people are no longer okay. We have learned and grown. But
barely.
But looking at that alongside, we should also look at the fact that they talk about slave and master in the Bible. No, we don't believe that anymore. Okay, well then also we shouldn't be believing these archaic, antiquated principles about women as property. This was the time when the scriptural text was written. Sure was. But that ain't how it works anymore. And their refusal to do that, the refusal to do a lot of things is just...
It's the picking and choosing of which passages should be applied literally. That confuses me a lot.
So much.
There are also passages that say if you're jealous, you should cut your eyes out. So, I just don't understand who gets to decide which passages we take literally and which passages we take figuratively. Who makes that call? And why do the rest of us have to follow it? Because, half of the Bible was also written in a very weird circumstance. Like the entire Old Testament makes little to no sense. Pretty much none. And then there's 4 variations of the same story from 4 different men's perspectives in the New Testament.
We said this at the beginning of the other one, and I think it stands to be repeated. If you are listening to this podcast and your faith in, especially a Christian faith, brings you a sense of belonging, a sense of joy, of peace, of comfort, keep it up. Keep it up. there is so much research to suggest that a strong spiritual center can be so good for people. It increases longevity. It keeps the focus off the self. It involves people in a community outside of them. I really do think it could be beautiful. I do. So I just want listeners to know, I think it can be great. And if you're a person who's also asking the questions that Holland and I found ourselves asking, know too that you can be a beautiful person with incredible ethics and morals. Yeah. I think that was the most funny thing. Speaking of you talking about, your non-Christian boyfriend, I was also raised to look down my nose
100%.
At people who didn't believe in the God that I believed in.
Yep.
I was raised to think they were dangerous and immoral. And it cracks me up to this day that my sweet little precious husband, now second husband, is so, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
He is so moral.
I was not raised necessarily to see them as dangerous and immoral, but more so as people to be pitied. How sad for them that they're not going to be in heaven. How sad for them that they're, living this unfulfilled life that has no purpose. It was that your life has no purpose if you don't have God. And I think that was really hard for me because I am driven by a core purpose. And I had to really, really shift. What is my purpose? And I had to decide that I was allowed to have one that I made. And that was weird.
That's really weird.
It was it shifted my entire reality to be able to choose my own purpose.
Well, and I think also, are you experiencing this too? Because I know I was in the early days and still do. It's so neat to make a decision from an internal lack of alignment and a check and balance here versus, I have to obey this outside rule, or I'll be in trouble, or I will make someone upset, or I'll need to go confess, or it is so funny to it was a hard thing for me to learn. Wait, if I'm only accountable to me, whoa, okay, well, I guess I have to have a strong, interesting. I got to listen to this. And that still is forever beautiful. Oh, whoa, even your whole story, the weekend story, the thing you were checking in with at the end of the day was you. How do you feel? Versus, oh no, what does the Bible say about this? Right?
I think I was always, and this is just goes to show how different our raisings were. I truly, I've always been that way. And I really never was one to be well, what does the Bible say? Am I sinning? I very early drew my own lines of what is sinful and decided for myself whether the church was correct or not.
I'll say this sometimes. I'm wild.
Because
that would have saved me a lot of pain.
I was just so hard to convince of things. And half the time I was only a good Christian because I was learning about it because I wanted to find loopholes. Because for me, I was just justifying my own morals and values with parts of the Bible. And if the Bible didn't align with my morals and values, then that part became unnecessary. And so I, as a person, truly have not changed at all. I just no longer feel like it's being lorded over my head. But it truly I just found loopholes in everything. I was just if it doesn't make sense, then it doesn't apply. And it just you could not get me to move my stance on that. I was way too stubborn.
As you should be.
I remember sitting down. This is a very funny memory from my high school days. I sat with the Mormons. We had a very Mormon group at my high school. I sat with them at lunch. And because they were my friends, not because I was sitting with the Mormons, but because they were my friends. They just happened to be Mormons. And I berated them about why are there 5 levels of heaven? What does that have to do with anything, with your sins, with who you are as a human? If you're a good human, then you're a good human. And if you make a mistake, who's to say that mistake is worse than the other mistake? And homosexuality, why does that put you on the lowest tier when if you're a homosexual who lived a perfect life, why are you not on the top tier? instead of being with the rapists. Like I fully had so many interesting conversations like that, because I was like, if you cannot show me the logic, it's not real. You cannot convince me of anything if you can't show me point A to point B and a justifiable reason for it. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to people and obviously homosexuality, because at the time I was like struggling to keep that tempered. And I was wanting to ask everybody the questions about the theology and the reasoning behind homosexuality being like apparently what felt like the end all be all sin.
Yeah, like the darkest of
the darkest sin. Because I remember my parents, especially my dad, being an elder, talking about like people that were going to church and had confessed to their homosexuality and were now in like constant counseling, because if they weren't in counseling, then they couldn't be members of the church. And that like if you are homosexual, you're not welcome if you're not working to fix it. Yeah. If you're not fixing it, then you can't be here. If you're trying to fix it, then you can't. I was given books by gay men and lesbian women that just lived their life in complete and total solitude because they weren't allowed. They had put themselves on this pedestal of, I will be a perfect Christian and never have a romantic relationship in the rest of my life. And I remember my parents saying, oh, well, if I were, a gay man, I would just find a lesbian woman and we could, be in partnership forever and maybe have a kid or two without ever, because then we don't ever have to struggle with our homosexuality. And I mean, homosexuality was the end all be all worst thing you could do. And I remember thinking, how is that worse than the fact that I was raped at 15 and he never had to do the type of counseling and life conversion that you're talking about for people who are just attracted to people of the same gender. And that's worse. Like I couldn't process it, and it never once made sense to me. And so I was just talking about it constantly because I was like searching for answers. Like someone has to have the answer to why this is the worst thing ever, according to this religion.
Another day we can talk about the connection to politics and greed and money and where that even came from in the Christian church in America, because it wasn't like that forever. It wasn't until actually fairly recently. And that's also what started just kind of blowing the whole thing up in my face, because when I realized, oh, it's connected to greed and money and power, then I was like, oh, gross, I want nothing. I want nothing to do with anything like that, because wait, it's not even based. Yeah. There is no, it is when we started saying that it is a threat to the fabric of the American family. And we started looking at the divorce rates in churches, and we started looking at things that threaten the family. And we started making all of this fucking verbiage. And then you just, it's not even like a complicated web to trace. It's like an easy web to trace. And that's when I was like, get me far away, because this doesn't have any backing. And then you start to dip a toe in the world of sexuality education, and you're like, oh wait, no, there are harmful sexual behaviors. Yes, there are. But we are turning a blind eye to them for the sake of uplifting heteronormativity, for the sake of uplifting money savings for churches. No, thank you. No, thank you. Instead, I'd like children to be raised with body autonomy. And I'd like everyone to know what they have agency over and how they can share this with grown-ups, and how they should do the things that they want to do, like girls, and not the things they don't want to do, like kiss a boyfriend, right? Like these are very important things to talk about that we're avoiding talking about because, they're so awkward.
Yeah, actually, speaking of that, this is a very vital part of the story that I forgot to include. See,
she does this.
This is how I tell stories. No, I was 100%. I asked my mom, is it okay that I like girls? And she said, we don't do this in this household. And So for me, what my body learned from that, what my little brain took was like, you have to like men. Like, you have to like men. And just like comp-headed myself into
What did you just say?
Comp-het?
What is that?
Compulsive heterosexuality.
I thought you said COMPE. Anyway.
Comp-het. So I just dated men all through high school. I was constantly dating someone. There was not a moment that I was not in a relationship, maybe 2 or 3 weeks between relationships. Because I just felt like that was my value.
Yeah.
Was like the man that I was with. And it pushed me to be a people pleaser in a way that harmed me indefinitely and put me in a relationship where I was abused and harmed emotionally, physically, sexually for upwards of a year. And it traumatized me because I thought that like you were just supposed to do what men told you to do, whether that be a 15-year-old boy who also has no idea what he's doing in his life. Like, he was a man and therefore was my spiritual leader and was supposed to be telling, but at the same time being told that all men want is sex. All men want is my body. All men want are like bad things from me. And like, I just had all of these mixed messages. And after hearing all men want is your body for years and years and years and years, when I finally had hit the point of, 6 or 7 incidences of assault in my 23-year-old life, crying with someone in my life and telling them like, I can't with men anymore. Like, I'm just done. All of them are disgusting. All of them, like, and I know that this is broad stroke, but when you've been assaulted 7 times, come back to me and tell me what you think. Like, I was just in this hole of like, I just can't. And then to hear that same voice that has been telling me all men want is your body for my whole life, to then turn around and be like, well, not all men. Not all men. Look at your brother. Look at your dad. Look at, and then just like naming like men in my life that are supposedly good men.
When we don't equip young people to listen to their bodies. Okay, so like little Holland, who's like, what about girls, right? How different could the story have gone? And we like to play this game so often, right? Like, oh my goodness, if that what your body is into, please tell me more. Like, what draws you? Because we have intuition that we silence in children. I wish Holland's story was unique, right? Like, I wish there were not as many people out there being repeatedly assaulted by people in male bodies. Yeah. And my God, like, we've just got to do better. Like, it's just stupid. Yeah, it's not based in anything. It's based in fiction.
Stuff we've made up.
Yes. To protect whom? No. Instead of, oh, Holland, tell me more about who you're drawn to romantically, who makes you smile and happy. Yeah. Oh, how does that make you feel in your body? Oh, that's so cool. I always want you to be with people who make you feel like that, no matter what their gender is. Because then when you don't feel like that, you can, no one should make you feel anything but that. That's always what you should feel inside of, especially in a teen body. There's also these things about, just kind of like, I don't know if you probably never experienced this phrase, but like breaking up with someone is like practice for divorce. So like, kind of staying with these boys, these children, children. But like, yes, this concept of headship and these like little boys being smart enough to like lead a relationship as a 15-year-old. What?
Yeah.
Like, they're just more smart because they're a boy. No, there was totally double standards in my house. My brothers
100%.
were having sex in high school. And I just remember thinking, and what? And my parents would say, oh, well, they need this practice.
Wow.
Like they're going to have a different life than you, Lauren.
Mm-hmm. No, I experienced very similar things. Me and my sister, because I have an older sister, that we were never allowed to do. And I mean, on one hand, maybe it's because, my little brother's the baby. The baby always has a lack of rules. But it was seeing him get to do and experience high school when I was not.
It's wild. It's just wild.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to this really fun.
This is a fun episode. Lordy.
The beginning was fun.
The beginning was. I'm so proud of you. I hope you know. And it's so cool to hear your difference. That deep voice inside of you, this intuitive voice all along that was like, nah, I call bullshit. No. I think it's so cool and inspirational. And yeah, thank you for that and for being you and for still leading with that. And I'm so proud of you for removing yourself from that type of situation. And yeah, I think faith can be beautiful. I think it really can. People ask me now, like, oh, you don't believe in Jesus Christ? What do you believe in? And I always say magic and miracles. That's my favorite. But I think, to me, it still gives me really good feelings in my body to think that there's magical things still happen.
Oh, 100%.
That manifestation is powerful, that meditation is powerful, that mindfulness, that journaling, that kindness, that service. It's so funny. Like, these are still things I base my life upon.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the biggest one for me was the first time I went to a concert. And I realized, because I only ever really liked the music in church. Only ever really liked the music. I went to a concert and I was like, oh my God, I'm seeing Jesus.
It's a spiritual experience.
It's the same thing, y'all. Like, I just love the power of collective, like, joy and collective singing. And like, music has always spoken to my soul. And so now I believe in myself would be my answer. I believe in my ability to determine what I want and what I need. And music and art, nature. I believe in connecting with earth. It always baffled me how Christianity was so
wild,
apart from the earth and the moon and the ocean and the dirt that we dig our feet into, and grounding and witchcraft and like all of these things. I was like, is this not what God gave us?
I was always so confused.
So yeah, I believe in the earth and in myself, my connection to the earth. Music, the moon. Yeah. I believe in a lot of things. I just don't believe in that one anymore.
Thank you for sharing the story.
You're welcome.
We'll wrap us up there. I hope you all enjoyed.
I can hear my dog.
I can hear Holland's dog in the hallway.
Hold on, I want to go get him. He can say bye.
Oh, people will love it.
Ollie, come here.
You're just going to come see Grandma.
No.
Hi.
That's so rude. It's because you have a blanket.
Hi. He like leapt up onto my lap. It is because I have a blanket. Are you going to sit here? Or are you going to go see your mama?
Ollie.
I have a blanket. So this episode was heavy. And we want you to know that we believe in your right to self-determination. That was one of the things we weren't given inside those places. So informed decision-making, self-determination, to disagree with our opinions, to have a different lived experience. I think Holland and I have very specific lived experiences, even within Reformed Presbyterianism. And I do not want to make blanket statements about any of the things, because we all get to have our own stories. And yeah, if Christian faith is still serving you, more power to you. Please love the people around you, and please provide comprehensive sex ed to your kids. But other than that, please disagree, send us your own research. We love a good debate. And we really hope that this podcast helped you. If you are in like a wow, I'm really exploring sexuality, and that is simultaneously making me deconstruct my faith, I see you. And you can work with Sex Ed for You. I have a ton of clients just like that. You can go to sexedforyou.com/free consult and let Holland know kind of where you came from, what you're interested in, and she'll approve that. If you're just interested in some more free resources, you can go to our Instagram, which is sex_ed_for_you. Be sure to get on our email list, which is just sexedforyou.com/email, so that you can be aware of things like the workshop that we have coming up on May 1st from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. in New York City. Early bird discount ends on April 10th. The code for that is
Desire.
Use code DESIRE in the coupon place. Can't wait to keep talking with you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
No, do you want to say bye? Say bye to the
Ollie,
people.
can you bark?
I've never heard you bark.
Ollie,
I
you
don't
can
think
bark. Nobody sniffed the mic.
I did.
Come here, Ollie Poops. Oh, hello, sir. Oh. And we give him an up close. Look at him. Get myself out of the shot.
So cute.
Look at the precious boy.